people want to have everything in one place, like having the source code and all the issue management planning in one place. Collaboration is more or less one of the most important part of DevOps in general, regardless of the tool.
I think the best I've seen so far is that everyone uses GitLab, and higher levels, lower levels, everywhere, and the message is the same. It doesn't get transferred, so you don't lose information. If I would come into a company and there would be no code sharing or so, how can I ever learn how it's working? Hey, welcome to the Adfinis Open Talks. Today we have a new guest from GitLab, Sujeevan. Welcome to the Adfinis Open Talks.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Welcome.
You are a solution architect at GitLab. Can you describe your job a little bit?
So my role as a solutions architect is basically like talking to GitLab users or customers and help them to adapt new features, basically, or adapt the whole picture of all the different features of GitLab as the DevOps platform. As a whole view, rather than just focusing on like smaller parts of it, like source code management or something like that.
Exactly. You're also wearing a shirt of DevOps. Why is that?
Well, the main reason is GitLab is a DevOps platform, and I think the biggest issue with GitLab still, when talking to customers, is that they just see it as source code management and a little bit of CI, basically. And that is changing because we have so much and so many more features included to have basically fulfill everything out of the DevOps platform on the technical part of it.
I heard you're a marathon runner.
Yes.
So how much time does it take for you to actually be in shape and make sure you get that 42 kilometers done?
5-6 hours a week at least, ideally.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, depends on how much time I actually ending up to use. Yeah.
So are you using the time to write your book in between those runs?
That is a good question, actually, because yes, I've written a book about Git and now also working on another book, and having the time to run is basically my time also to think about things.
I've heard that you can prepare for a marathon, but it doesn't really make sense to run the whole marathon as an exercise. Is that true or not?
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
We skipped this a bit, but Sandro, can you introduce yourself?
Should I?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you as well?
I didn't, but you can ask me to introduce myself.
All right, so my name is Sandro Köchli. I'm working as a sales engineer at Adfinis. To be honest, since 18 years, so I haven't seen much
So
apart from Adfinis. I'm working with GitLab since we have it, and actually since it exists, more or less. Less as a technician, but more as a sales guy, as our sales team is fully onboarded on GitLab as well and using it for day-to-day jobs. So it's not just a DevOps platform, it's actually a tool for everything. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah, my name is Robert de Bock. I work for Adfinis the Netherlands, which is much smaller than Switzerland. My role is a Linux DevOps Architect. So technical stuff, also some 20 or so years experience, mostly in the Linux area, and working with GitLab since quite some time also, yeah.
How about you? When did you adopt Git in general?
Basically when I started working, so I started directly with Git, so I didn't have to use that much of Subversion or any of the other older tools.
I'm a bit jealous.
That's the age difference between us and you. We had to work with all the other stuff as well.
Yeah, CVS, SVN.
Yeah. There's still other stuff, living Mercurial.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
At least you didn't mention Asias. So.
No.
All right. So let's get further. Let's talk about Git or GitLab in general. What, as a GitLab employee, what's your favorite feature or trick within GitLab that you're using on a day-to-day job?
So basically it's two questions, because I would differentiate between Git as a source code management tool and GitLab as the DevOps platform. So looking at Git, it's definitely what people should know about is Git Bisect. Do you know Git Bisect?
To be honest, I don't.
Me neither. We're going to learn something.
Too much of a sales, probably.
So Git Bisect is basically a tool for developers, where you can find the commit which introduced an error. So for example, you have version 1.0 and 1.2, and you know that there's one bug in the current version, 1.2, but the bug wasn't existing in 1.0. So what you can do is like just debug the whole thing like you would normally do, or you can run Git Bisect with a script, so mostly a test case, and that will do a binary search across all the different commits. And if you do this completely automatically, have a script like building the project and running the tests, or running the test, then it will quickly find the commit which introduced the error.
Okay, so Git blame deluxe, basically.
Sounds sophisticated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it finds the commit, and then you can look into the commit where you can see like, okay, what was changed, what was the context of it, and then probably or hopefully not, you will see a small commit with a small change, and not a big, huge commit which fixes everything, because then you still need to debug everything.
Yeah. That's a good one, by the way. What I see, there's a sort of a preference between engineers. Some say it must work all at once, so massive commit. Others say let's take small grains and slowly improve it.
Depends where you want to end up at the ranking.
The commit, if you're paid by commit ranking. Or so,
Paid by commit, exactly.
What do you prefer? What do you see?
There are advantages and disadvantages of it. For if you look into GitLab, how we develop GitLab itself, it's most of the time it's smaller merge requests with just like the changes you need. Then it's just one commit, including the implementation and the test case, for example. For example, I'm not a developer, but I sometimes fix smaller things. But then I also have to create a test case and so on. And the good thing then is like if you do a Git Bisect and find that commit, then you only have to revert that one commit and not like have to do 10 or different.
Yeah, it's very targeted. It's probably also a bit more easy to review and maybe make also.
Yeah, and it depends on when you look at it. So when you're doing the review in a merge request, for example, then it's easier if you have multiple smaller commits, so you see the history. Yeah. But then it might make sense to squash it. I'm personally not much of a fan of it, but it really depends on how much you actually fixed on it and so on.
Yeah, good to know. And we mentioned Git. We know your favorite Git trick now. And is there a favorite GitLab trick? Or feature or?
Yeah, there's one feature which is kind of cool because we want to position GitLab not only for developers but basically for everyone. And there's one feature which is there, which is called visual reviews. So you can basically insert a small JavaScript kind of source code snippet inside of your web application, which you then deploy with GitLab, and then non-technical person can review it by just clicking on the page and then leave a comment while viewing this deployed app in a review environment, and this comment will end up in the merge request. So it's easier to review UX, user experience kind
to
of
look
things.
at the end product and then comment on it.
Yes.
That is nice. That is very nice. Yeah. Is that an enterprise feature or?
Actually, I don't know.
I think in this video description we'll have a link to try and use GitLab Enterprise, so people can pick up on that and try it themselves, right? I'm also not so sure if it's enterprise or not, but fine. Good to know.
Luckily, lots of features in GitLab are actually available in the community edition as well.
I think the most important thing is, if you're talking about enterprise, is like looking the whole picture with every feature, which is most importantly like security features. So in that case, we have the whole view of it, like developing, getting fast feedback on, as a developer, like, okay, did I introduce new vulnerabilities? How can I fix it? And so you get direct feedback in the merge request. How is the quality for test cases, for security dependencies, static code analysis, and that is like one of the nicest features, I would say, if you're going with enterprise. Specifically, because it helps the developer to make the life basically easier.
Yeah.
And that's what you can basically try if you're looking into this trial, and then you can see it, that it's rather easy to use and you don't have to configure 10 different tools for every different language and so on.
What bugs me is there actually an Easter egg inside GitLab? Because all famous software have somewhere an Easter egg, and I haven't found one in GitLab. Is there one? Like I don't know, a game or whatever you can start by
maybe merge request with a special title or tag or so.
Exactly.
You need to look closer into the source code then.
Ah, shit, okay, yeah. I mean, we see in the market, we see a lot of, especially Switzerland, we see a lot of companies using the Atlassian stack. And we think it's absolutely uncool, but we'd like to have your opinion. Why do you think GitLab is cooler than the Atlassian stack?
I think we should look into it in a different way, because I didn't use the Atlassian stack that much before joining GitLab. And now I don't use it for obvious reasons. But the most important stuff is like, okay, why are people switching to GitLab? And why are they even removing or migrating off from Jira, for example? Which we slowly see the interest in it, because people want to have everything in one place. Basically what we mentioned at the beginning, like having the source code and all the issue management planning in one place with all the different parts of the development lifecycle, because otherwise it's like, okay, the product managers, product owners, or however you call it, in the agile world don't see the source code, so they don't see any progress, and in that they can collaborate, and collaboration is more or less one of the most important part of DevOps in general, regardless of the tool. And that is why I think GitLab is better in that case, that you can better collaborate in a more efficient way.
So you think adoption of GitLab is gaining because of features and functions, and less because the Atlassian is forcing the people to move to the cloud?
Well, it's kind of both, because since for Jira, I think it's like Jira on the cloud and Jira server, I think, and Jira data center are all different products basically, with a very similar but not same use case. So they need to migrate and migrate stuff off. I mean, for Bitbucket, it's easy, or for their CI Bamboo, exactly. Because on the clouds, it's, I think, Bitbucket pipelines, which is a whole other tool. So they need to migrate anyway in the next few years. So people think about like, okay, how can we improve it in general? And it's always interesting to see like, okay, what kind of people are asking it? So if we're talking about like Scrum Master, product owners, and so on, they are just used to the Jira stack, but the techies mostly want GitLab because it's simpler, easier to use, and that's basically how the different people are using GitLab and looking at it. So
So I hear that there's different people using GitLab. What do you see? Who uses GitLab basically? I guess techies for sure. What other people are using GitLab?
Yeah, I mean, we started with the techies, so developers, operations, but also like project managers, product owners, and so on. Management also, because they can have a clear view on who's doing what, because everything is in one place, so they don't have to switch around. And which makes life easier for basically everyone. But also security team, if you're looking at security vulnerabilities in each project, and they can also like switch directly from like the vulnerability view to the project itself and give them like some information like, hey, you should really fix the log4j issue, for example. But also like marketing people, for example, we use GitLab for the company. And we plan everything regarding our events in GitLab as well. So I regularly get pinged about like, hey, do you want to attend this or that event? We need someone more technical for the booth, for example. And then like, okay, here it is, let's go.
Yeah, what I've seen is also that sometimes if you use different tools, you have to sort of transfer the message or the goal from one tool to the other. And each transfer, you lose a bit of data or information.
Yeah.
And I think the best I've seen so far is that everyone uses GitLab, and higher levels, lower levels, everywhere, and the message is the same. It doesn't get transferred, so you don't lose information basically.
For myself, it's actually my to-do list. That's actually the main feature I use GitLab for. It's my to-do list.
That's an enterprise feature, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think I'm even using one of the features that you only get with enterprise, and it's the mail. It's the mail feature. I'm not sure if it's only enterprise, but it's my favorite feature by far. Forwarding an email to my GitLab project, opening an issue, and labeling it with some priority and giving it a due date, because that's most of my to-dos are actually created based on an email I get.
So you think of something, quickly send a mail in the morning.
I love it, and then I have my Kanban board, and then it's actually in the priority queue where I want to have it. Yeah. And then I'm reminded at the date when I want to be reminded. It's really, really amazing. So I'm less using it for code, but I'm using the issue feature a lot. It's my main tool for every day managing my tasks. Actually.
Bit about CI/CD. So I guess many people use CI/CD. You probably place your code somewhere and you want to do something with it. Well, since you have the DevOps shirt on, what do you consider CI/CD?
Basically the whole pipeline. So first of all, like building the project, pushing the project to the GitLab internal container registry or package registry, for example, testing everything, and testing includes security testing as well, and then deploying it to wherever you want to, for example, Kubernetes or your car. I mean, we do also have like feature flag service included, which is also kind of connected to the CD, to the release part, but not directly connected to the pipeline. Depends on how you look at it, basically. But basically, you can have that one as well, which is kind of nice to have.
How about Auto DevOps? There's this Auto DevOps feature in GitLab, which is actually very neat. So what is it actually?
So Auto DevOps is actually a nice feature if you want to be lazy and you know that.
Perfect for IT guys, right?
Exactly. I mean, I also like to do like the figuring out stuff, but for the pipeline stuff, most of the time, the developers are getting paid to develop an application or whatever they're developing, and not for doing a lot of stuff regarding pipeline management, for example, like coding the pipeline and so on. We want to make the life of the developers as easy as possible. And with Auto DevOps, for example, that's what I basically mentioned a few seconds earlier, like building the project automatically. So looks into the project, figures out like, oh, there's a POM XML file, so I should probably run Maven. And I should probably build, or there's a Docker file in it, so I should probably build a Docker image automatically. So you don't have to figure out how to build the Docker image and push it to the GitLab internal Docker registry. And then testing as well. Running the test, Maven test, for example, if you're talking about Java, running the security scanner for Java as well. And that automatically, because you don't want to do it on your own, because there's no need to. I mean, it doesn't work for every use case, but for like microservices or like small projects, it works really good, I would say. Also depends on the programming language, but in that case, you get like a whole overview, and most of them, or most of the stuff out of the box, including deploying to Kubernetes. So if you're on the master branch or the main development branch, then it gets deployed to production. If you're on a feature branch, it gets deployed to a review environment. If you have a Kubernetes cluster connected.
Yeah, exactly. That preview application, that is also a very cool tool.
Kubernetes. You said you can directly deploy to Kubernetes clusters, so it's somehow integrated. How does GitLab interact with Kubernetes? Not just for deployment, but can you also run GitLab on Kubernetes? Yeah,
so you can do both. And I think, running GitLab as a service is kind of boring, I would say, because you want to use GitLab as a product.
That's our whole work, It's not boring, it's very complicated, but thank you.
For the end user, it's boring. For the end users, it's boring because the benefit of GitLab is that you use the features. And most of the time, also for me, it's like talking to customers like on how you want to use GitLab I want to talk to what benefits you get of using GitLab, and not about how you can configure it on running it on Kubernetes or on whatever cloud or on-premise.
It's perfect like that, because we like that our customers also don't care, because we like to do it for them. So we like to run it, we like to operate it, and so they can concentrate on their core business, on what they actually do with. They
slowly see like, okay, it makes sense to just give it to someone who has an expertise in it, so they can focus on what's important, and that is using the features, actually. The other question was basically about deploying to Kubernetes from GitLab, which is more interesting. And this is also a common question which I get, so that's a good thing to talk about, because in the past we had a certificate-based approach. So the GitLab server has the certificate of the Kubernetes cluster configured in a project or on the group level, and that is connecting from the outside the cluster to the cluster. Mm-hmm. The problem with that is you need to open up the cluster to the open world. Mm-hmm. And for security reasons, you don't really want to do that. So what then came up is GitOps, or the GitOps pattern. In that case, we have GitLab agent for Kubernetes, which is similarly working like the GitLab runner. So it can be installed on Kubernetes only in that case. And it's basically a connection bridge. So it runs inside of your Kubernetes cluster and connects to the GitLab server from the inside. Mm-hmm. But you can still run your old pipelines if you want to. You just say like, okay, I want to run it in that cluster with that agent. And then it uses this back tunnel basically to the cluster to deploy something. It can be a push-based approach, but also a pull-based approach. Okay.
Has there been a lot of adoption of the whole security features, that this whole shift left security topic?
Yeah.
And there's tons of scannings and stuff you can actually do within code and containers and whatsoever. Do you see a lot of adoption?
Yes. So the thing is, most of the people have like so many different tools regarding security only. So they have something for image scanning, they have something for static application security testing, so SAST short, something for dependency scanning, and then you have the challenge that it's depending on every programming language which you have, and most of the time you have multiple programming languages. And you are ending up with multiple dashboards to look at.
That's where GitLab is very strong. Also, these security issues are very close to the code. So you can immediately make a merge request. It is much better than a separate tool where you have to go out and discover that there's something wrong, rather than just immediately seeing it. It's pretty logical, actually.
Talking about like inner sourcing in companies, do you think teams should have a mindset that they open up their projects, because we see a lot of companies, they have a lot of, every team has their GitLab projects and they're closed and private and nobody can see it. Do you think that's or what do you think about that actually?
Yeah, it's an important topic. And it's not depending on the tool which you're using. We say GitLab is a DevOps platform, and it's more DevOps mindset, and it's more important to look into that. And one of the things in DevOps is to collaborate efficiently, and that means things need to be open up. So if you're working in the same company, and you're working on one product and I'm using another product, but somewhat depending on you, it's easier for me if I could just fix things in your project if I have the time and the knowledge for it, or I can at least open an issue. But if you completely close it down, you can't see anything, so you don't know if it's coming soon, if it's not coming soon, how the workload for you is, for example. So since I get the visibility into the other project, then I can just okay, let's contribute it. I fork it, I make a merge request, and I try to fix it if it's a small thing, or even if it's bigger. And that's what customers do with us as well. We have so many different customers who contribute to GitLab because we can't fix everything or implement everything. So they implement it, but we take the time to review it.
Yeah. Sometimes I speak to people about their project, their code or so, and I ask them, could you contribute? Could you open source this? Could you publish it and make it fully public? No, because it's the intellectual properties in the company, or no, because there's sensitive data in here, or no, because there's maybe mistakes that others could exploit or so. Weak arguments. I think in general, try to publish it. Also probably improves the quality, because you need to think about getting the data out and only keeping the logic in.
Yeah, exactly.
So in general, it's a good trick to try and publish.
I actually have a good example. I was talking to a customer lately, and they were telling me hey, I want to work on so people work on GitLab issues with labels and so on, but they shouldn't see the source code. So, and I always want to understand why are they doing it?
I have a pain in my head now, a bit like, okay.
Yeah.
Curious to the explanation here.
Yeah, and it's always interesting because most of the time techies are more like, okay, I want to solve this thing. So they told me like, when is GitLab doing that so that feature is available? Because right now it isn't, because our whole concept is not that fine granular. So, but my view on it is like, okay, why do you want to do that? And when I asked them, they said like, yeah, we have people who don't understand coding, and like, okay, but that's not a problem, because if they don't understand anything, they don't need to, so they don't look at it. So yeah, but they also shouldn't be able to destroy something.
Protect the branches, I guess. Yeah, I mean.
Exactly. So like, okay, that one is off as well. So I continuously asking more questions like, okay, what is the problem? And then they were saying, yeah, there's passwords in the source code. And which is then also interesting, like, okay, there should not be any passwords or secrets in the source code. And but then that was still not the issue, because then they said like, yeah, but that's not a huge issue because it's in a protected environment on some servers. Not everyone can use these passwords. Like, okay, but what is the problem? Well, it's the policy. and that is generally the case when we talk about DevOps in general, that it's first of all a mindset change. It needs to be not only in the team, but also in the upper management. And if they don't understand it, they only see GitLab, for example, or software development as a cost center and not as a vehicle to, make money, make more money.
Talking about inner sourcing with management people, you can easily link it to innovation or quality and productivity, because it's just collaboration. Good collaboration is just is good for not only for technical teams or for developers, but for the whole company actually. And if you have best practices on working on common tools and common applications, that's just pushing the company forward. I mean, we know there's not too many skilled people out in the market, so the few you have should be collaborating, right?
I think for me, it's maybe a bit of a strange way to look at it. It has to do with honesty. So if I would come into a company and there would be no code sharing or so, how can I ever learn how it's working? That's going to be a long, long path. So it's not just me, it's anyone that joins that company that is just very painful if it's not written for me or anyone else to pick up on. So it's a very deep sort of desire, yes, thou should publish, basically.
We also connect some of our customers to each other to talk about inner sourcing, for example.
Yeah, exactly. They're very open for that, and we're trying to do that as well. We're trying to connect our customers so they can talk to each other how they approached it. Some have a bottom-up grassroots approach, others have it pushed from the management, and it's always differently, and at some point everybody profits. So we're trying that as well, and usually GitLab is the single source of truth for everything that's actually driving stuff, and helping a lot with that.
And I guess you only speak to customers using the enterprise version of GitLab, correct?
Well, both. Most of the time they are on Community Edition, for example, for a long time, so they do know a lot of features, but then want to try out Ultimate, for example, because they heard we do something with security scanning as well. Actually, there's 3 editions: Community Edition, or Core Edition, or Free Edition, however you call it. Then, which is completely open source, the Community Edition. Then Enterprise Edition is Premium, and then Ultimate. And basically, it's for Premium, it's basically a lot of smaller things, a lot of things in pipelines which are enterprise only, which are mostly relevant to enterprises. A lot of infrastructural things like LDAP group synchronization, for example, which is kind of important, and infrastructure related things in general. And in that regard, that is like you get a lot of smaller things. So it's not like you get one fancy new feature, but it's like a lot of smaller things.
Probably
which makes
typically fits a bit better in a large organization, I would guess.
Exactly. If you're just a small team, then you can probably easily use the Core Edition, but it's but then it's more interesting to talk about Ultimate, because that includes security scanning,
Yeah.
especially, but also like DORA metrics. So you can, on the one side, see all the benefits of all the vulnerabilities, basically, and can reduce it rather easily, and can also see like, okay, how productive is my team or the company, and improve on that one as well.
Yeah, once again, for everyone watching the video, in the description there's a link to a trial license, so you can try it out yourself, see if it's something that's useful to you. I'm pretty sure, but still, give it a go and see if it works for you.
So one important thing, I mean, for me personally, luckily emojis are not part of the enterprise version, so it's also available in a community edition. So I like to use emojis. But one important question: if I contribute a new emoji, do I have a chance that it gets upstream?
If it gets reviewed and if it's a good idea, why not?
So I will
I'm
try.
very curious. Is it the Milka emoji?
we do have plenty of emojis internally in our MetaMost that we could try to bring upstream. That would be fun, actually.
That is not a bad plan.
Yeah, the troll face, for example, or some others.
Yeah, I think right now we only have, for the most cases, just the
It's
regular
not too many
emojis,
Yeah.
the regular ones.
Yeah.
So the UTF-8, UTF-8 emojis. But we also added like the GitLab logo.
Yeah, but we need, for example, the Adfinis logo is completely missing and
Yeah, and I think the world
easily
is looking
available
for that.
for everybody worldwide. Why not?
Yeah.
However,
Hey, Sujeevan, we've got a bit of a game.
Okay.
yeah.
It's half scripted, so people don't know about this, but we do, right? We will ask you a question with a left or a right decision, basically, which you should immediately respond to. So it could be red or blue, and you say red. You don't have to think about it, and let's give it a go. Summer or winter?
Winter.
Containers or VMs?
Containers.
Zurich or Bern?
Bern.
Pull request or merge request?
Merge requests. Definitely.
Paper or e-reader?
E-reader.
VS Code or GitLab Web IDE?
Soon, VS Code in GitLab.
Okay.
Oh, can we
Soon.
stop on that? That is nice.
Yeah, please
That is-
elaborate.
So right now you have the Web IDE, which is
Yeah.
rather simple.
Yeah.
And there is a team right now working on it on, I think it's something called remote workspace development. We're still finding a name for it. There's probably some epics and issues on the planning on it, if you look at it.
I'm
And-
never gonna leave GitLab anymore.
It's good. You're going to live in GitLab.
And I think the current status is that you then can, or the vision is that you can just run, if you click on Web IDE, basically it will open up a Visual Studio Code inside of GitLab, so you don't even have to switch the window, but just be in GitLab.
I mean, next step would be booting GitLab as an operating system.
GitLab OS and a GitLab phone, GitLab ear things and everything GitLab.
So let's continue.
VI or Emacs?
VI.
Sauerkraut or fondue?
Sorry?
Sauerkraut or fondue? Has fondue.
Fondue, if you invite me.
Fondue or raclette?
Raclette.
SVN or Git?
Git.
Write a book or run a marathon?
Why not both?
That's a skip. One.
Yeah. Linux or Mac?
Linux.
Postgres or Oracle?
Postgres.
Ansible or Salt?
Ansible.
Terraform or Ansible?
Ansible.
Barefoot or shoes?
Shoes.
Vegetables or meat?
Vegetables.
Chicken or fish?
Chicken.
AWS or Azure?
AWS.
Electric or combustion engine?
Electric.
Mountains or ocean?
Mountains. Definitely mountains.
Go or Rust?
Go.
Python or PHP?
Python.
Android or iOS?
Android.
All right. That's it. Thanks a lot.
Cool, only skipped one. Well done.
Yeah, well done. No thinking.
So that concludes this Adfinis Open Talk with Sujeevan as a guest from GitLab. Thanks a lot for being here and having a nice conversation with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks
Too.
a
It
lot.
was pretty fun.
Thanks.